a wonderful trajectory in terms of how things evolved, and where you actually handed over in 2018, before retiring.
I became a manager in 2007, and then I retired December 2018, but I stayed on until May 2019 as a consultant, just part-time, just to sort of embed everything, because up until then I was managing all of the projects.
Yeah.
And then we decided to split it into two teams, which was much more sensible, and have an adult manager and a children's manager. So, but that was kind of my vision, and that was my plan for the future. And I was lucky that Eddie and the governors all took that on board and decided that that was the right way to go. So the trustees were very supportive.
Thank you so much for sharing all that with us. I mean, taking back, you mentioned about having staff, stable staff, and people that would actually have their hearts with the job. Yeah. Now, if I move into the second segment, of this interview, which is now focusing on the parent carer, yeah, I can't count how many families you worked alongside with, Gill. So, I mean, you know us, even though you're not walking directly in our shoes.
Yeah.
So what exactly a person who have found themselves in the caring role as a parent and have had to stop, because obviously, I mean, at some point I was reducing my hours as the needs were increasing. Yeah. So you found yourself in that space. Mm. How can you begin to go back to finding a career? What are the things that how can they start? Where is the starting point? Because it can yes.
I think, honestly, to be honest, I think first of all, you've got to think about something that you would really enjoy doing. I know lots of carers go into the caring profession because that's what they know. And if they enjoy it, then I think that's brilliant. But I do think it's important to choose something that you're going to enjoy doing, because you're going to work a lot of hours of your life, and if you can say I've enjoyed my job, then that's been a success for your life, hasn't it? So first of all, choose something that you really enjoy. Then look around and see the sort of employees in your area that might be flexible. I think the public sector's good. The charitable sector, voluntary sector, is definitely good. Big businesses, probably not so much, because they're much more about making a profit. Mm. So, but that's not to say that there aren't some brilliant companies out there. But think carefully to what area you want to fit into, start off with. And then it is just a matter of getting your confidence up. Volunteering is a great way to get back into things. Okay. That's how I started off, by volunteering. And I think it gives you a taste of the sort of career that you might be going back into or starting afresh. And you'll find out whether you like it or not. And you've got no constraints on you. As a volunteer, yes, as a manager, when I'm dealing with volunteers, yes, I would love to have them. But I always knew that they could just sort of not turn up one day, because they're not being paid. They're committed to me, but they're not in as much as that they're going to break any contract. So for me, that was something that I always had to bear in mind. But for the person that's volunteering, good, do it. And actually, if your child is sick one day, well, don't volunteer. You don't worry about trying to get somebody else in to look after your child. You stay home to look after your child. And I think that, as I say, if you do volunteering for 6 months a year, then you'll really get the feel for if you're going to like that job or not. Mm-hmm. Now, that's not so easy to do in the business world, but you can volunteer as an administrator, or if you go on to Community Links, and Diane Diamond, who's the coordinator for volunteer, and you just sign up on their sheet, they will send you emails with what positions are available and what days they're available, and you can choose something that suits you.
For volunteering.
For volunteering. Honestly, I think unless you've got a career really set in mind, you need to go out and taste quite a few things before you decide this is actually what I want to do.
What sort of attitude, what sort of what sort of demeanor can go back? Because you know, the caring role is highly demanding,
Very demanding.
and
Very demanding.
it takes almost everything away from you, you know, if you're not careful. And so when someone is already in that space, you know, exhausted, you know, just tidying on, just rolling on, like things happening to you that you don't even have control over, you know, you can't wage, you know, you can't do a magic wand and wave a magic wand, fighting in day out, you know, the system and all that. How can you get yourself out to even begin to think of jobs or of career?
I think it's very difficult, but I think you'll know it when it's right for you. You can't have anybody else. You can't have anybody else tell you it's right or the wrong time for you. You will instinctively know when you're going to wake up one morning and think, actually, I want more out of my life than this. I'm going to do something else. Or you're going to think, do you know what? I'm very fulfilled in my role as a carer, and I just want to give it the best that I can. And I'm going to look at all the things that can help me be the best carer I am, because it's a career as well.
Indeed.
You know, it really is. So there's two routes you can go down. You can either make yourself the best carer that there ever was and do all the relevant courses and go on mindfulness and relaxation so that you're at the top of your game for when you're doing your caring. Or you can think, actually, I enjoy this role, but I actually want to do something else as well. When you get to that stage, you've got to do your tasters, you've got to do your volunteering, I think, unless you know what you're going back into. But at that point, you also need to start researching your backup. You must have a backup plan, because otherwise you will be so stressed. Now, if you've got family and friends around you who are willing to be your backup plan, great. But not everybody's got that.
No.
So you then have to start looking around at things like childminding networks, at nurseries, breakfast clubs, after school clubs. And you really, really have to think about all those extra hours you're going to be out of the house and what you're going to need to do to fulfill that role. Because as a support worker, I would be all for you doing that. But as an employer, I'd be thinking, I want to make sure this person's going to be able to deliver for me. So you can't be too, it wouldn't do to be too kind, to be honest, because actually you're going to give that carer a false impression of what life is really like if they go back to work. And that's not really fair. You've got to say, these are all the pitfalls. They've got to sit down and think about the pitfalls. When my child is ill, when the school holidays come along, when I've been up all night and I feel like I can't put one foot in front of the other, how am I going to manage all these pitfalls? And actually, will the payback from enjoying the role that I've got and being my own person again for a short period of time, how will I cope? Also, you've got to be able to do that mentally. Now, just briefly going back to very briefly to my own life, that there were some times when it was particularly difficult. As you know, when I had one daughter had serious mental health issues for 10 years, and then my mum had Parkinson's for the last sort of 10 years of her life. And there were times when, and I was working full time, and there were times when I thought, gosh, you know, I'd be up in the morning going around to mum's trying to sort her out before I came into work. And I used to have this vision in my head that when I left my mum's and I got in my car and I was driving to work, I had two hats. I took my caring hat off and I put my business hat on, and I didn't let my caring hat slip back up here until I got to lunchtime. You know, I really was very strict about it. My husband always said, put it in a box and put the lid on it. And he kind of, you know, he had the right idea. He said, you know, you can't do anything about it in that period of time. So that's what you've got to do. And I think if you can try to separate your home life and your caring role from your role in the workplace, for you mentally, that's a good thing. You can expect support from your workplace and should expect support from your workplace, but I think mentally you need to be able to shut off from that and concentrate on what you're doing. As you say, you don't always want to be talking about your children when you're with your friends, and it's the same thing when you go to work, you have to kind of shut that to one side, whatever responsibilities you've got.
You've slipped into my third section, actually, talking a little bit about the employer. But and we'll come back there. If I just finish the one other aspect that I have for, okay, two, sorry, I lied. Another area for parent carers, okay?
Yes.
One of the questions, you know, when I found myself in this terrain 12 years ago, one of the questions that I used to dread so badly is when you're having conversations and someone, oh, so what do you do?
Yeah.
I mean, if it was my life in the past, I would be so excited telling you I'm an HR person, I have, you know, this, I've done that, these are my roles, my responsibility, I train, and you go on and on. You're actually looking for opportunities to talk about what you do. But when I move into that terrain, suddenly my identity as a worker went off and was stripped away, and I didn't even know who I was anymore.
Yeah.
And over time, I then, even now that I engage with other parents, carers, I hear phrases like, oh, I don't do anything. I'm just at home at the moment. Or I'm just caring for my daughter. Oh, I'm just caring for my child with disability. We know that now so what are the transferable skills that you think you can identify for parents, carers that they can leverage on when they want to move into the caring role?
Well, I think there's a big emphasis now in the world of business, as well as public and voluntary sector, on mental welfare. My daughter works in the city, and she's just been appointed welfare officer for the team there. And this has all come about because of lockdown and people suffering sort of from anxiety, etc., and having mental health issues by being isolated all the time. And that is pretty well what happens to a carer. Often they're very isolated and they get anxiety, etc. But they learn coping strategies. And I think if you've had that, that's a wealth of experience that you can take to an employer to say, I know about anxiety, I know about pressure, I've learned how to cope with this and deal with this. So this is what I can bring to the table just from my caring experience. Plus, any woman will tell you, and I shouldn't really talk about women only, I'm sure men can be equally good, but we'll see. But multitasking, what a brilliant thing that is for women. They can always do 3 things at once. They can keep an eye on kids, cook the dinner, and read a book at the same time, And I think that women are exceptionally good at that. And I think carers are very good at that, because that's what they have to do. That's what they do. So they can bring that. They can bring empathy for anybody that's having any difficulties in their life. So there will be a good member of the team in that respect. They're usually pretty damn good at timekeeping of that, because they've generally had a very good a strict routine that they have to have with their children. It might be around medication, it might be around physiotherapy, and getting them to various clubs and things. So they'll be good at timekeeping, managing a timetable. And so, all those skills I think are transferable. And they're just some of the few. I mean, gosh, there must be probably a lot more than that.
So I'm putting all this together on a CV, reflecting, because I think the first thing, again, I'm slipping into employer section, but what an employer will be looking for, again, I mean, what we always ask for is the gap. You've been off work for this long. What have you been doing in that space? And then your confidence just...
Yes, but I think you need to come back with that, and you need to say, I've been a career carer. It's a career. I've been a career carer. This is what I've achieved.
Got another word today. Thank you. Okay. Yes.
Because that is what you've been. This is what I've achieved. These are the things. And I've researched it, and I found out all this about my child's condition, or my elderly mother, or whatever it is. You've researched it, you've looked at it, you've made the very best life for them that you can. You have been a career carer, and there is nothing more important than that.
So research, I hear that again in what you're saying, that because I mean research is you have this medication, you're going on to look what it is about. You hear this, oh, this has developed, you're looking around on Google for that, and and that we can transfer into the place of work. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I didn't know anything about Parkinson's when my mum developed it. I knew an awful lot by the end of 10 years. There wasn't much that I didn't know about it in the end. About her particular kind of dementia that she got with the Parkinson's and everything. Yeah. It's so important to do your research. And I think if you've done that, and you can talk a little bit about all the things you did, it shows that you're willing to learn, that you want to go on those training courses, that you want to develop yourself. So it's really important to push that side of your caring life, if you like.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And I reckon, I mean, when we're at the interview table, facing the panel,
yes,
negotiating from that place of strength is necessary, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really, I think the trouble is it can only come from inside you, Funky, as you know, but you really have to believe in yourself when you go in there. And actually, I'll tell you what else, when I'm in, just for a point for interviewing, if somebody says to me, I don't know the answer to that, but I'm very willing to learn about it or go away and find out about it, that's all right by me. Okay. If they start waffling and try to make it up, then no. Be honest. Always be honest.
Yes. Know that as well. Well, that comes nicely into this third phase about the employer. I say I've had the honor and the privilege of working with you for close to just a little short of 5 years. And I say, when I talk to people today, I say that period really had been the best of my career life, when I was in paid work, because you just made it, yes, gradually. I mean, if you remember, I started with 7 hours, and when you were telling me on the phone I got the job, I said I had more hours than 7, and you're like, oh, Funke, okay, why don't you think about that and get back to me? And that was what you said. I was in the park that day, and the rest is history, because then I moved it in, and you gave me so much strength and so much energy in myself to believe in myself, to bring out the best, in me. And that transferred into all the other things that you just allowed me to soar. So
I think you're
another opportunity to say thank you, Gill. Thank you so much.
Funky, you were always a powerhouse. You didn't need me to push you along. I know that.
Oh boy. So, thank you. So I was wondering that, what can you say to an employer of labor to encourage them? What did you see in us? Because at some point, the Independent Support Service, one of the projects that I worked on, you allowed us eventually to bring in or everybody on that project were parent carers.
That's right.
Everybody that we then recruited for all the period. I'm sure it took a lot of trust from you to allow us to do that, and we did successfully under your tutelage. What can you tell an employer about parent carers, about families, so that they can begin to open up the doors a little bit more?
Well, I think one of the biggest things is that I knew if I employed a parent, that they would really want the job. They would really want the job. They weren't just doing this because they needed to earn some money. They were doing this job because they believed in it and they really wanted it. And they knew that I was risking by taking them because of all the issues that they were going to bring with them, which is fine. So, do you know what? I think they almost felt like they couldn't let me down. That's the way I felt, that they were determined to prove that having a parent carer was going to be the best person that I could employ on that role. And I think that's what I would say to other employers. They come with such commitment, parent carers, they do, or just carers, to be honest, because they know they've got a gap in their career. And I'm always looking to see that they filled it with useful things, but there might be a gap there in their career. So they know that they feel that they're starting on the back foot, but actually they've got such a lot to offer. As I say, it's the commitment that I really like. Plus, they've got a lot of experience. If they're working in the field that we were working in, then they were bringing so much experience with them, experience that I'd never had. So I was sort of very pleased to be able to get that. Very pleased to be able to get that. But honestly, the main thing is that if you take on somebody that's been a carer, you know that they're going to be very, very grateful to get that role, and they're going to be committed. And with that, then you think, right, okay, well, I can really work with this. And it might mean that you've got to be more flexible around their working hours, etc. But you can rely on them to deliver. And that's the way I would tell it to other employers. And frequently did. So yeah.
What are the practical arrangements that could benefit an employer when they're looking at, I mean, you employed some with us, so can you talk through that, just so we, if any employer is hearing this, they can, okay, so we could do it this way, we could do it that way, so we could make it work for both parties.
I think it's about trying to be flexible. I mean, this all happened long before home working was the norm as it is now. And I think it's probably a lot easier now, because if you can work from home, you can fit it in around your caring responsibility. But actually, sometimes for me, that was quite an advantage, because you might remember that you would go along to meetings in the evening because AJ was home and he could look after the children. So actually, to me, that was a bit of an advantage, that you would say, actually, I'd really quite happy to work those hours in the evening, whereas another person who didn't have caring responsibilities wants to go home, sit down, watch telly and have a glass of wine. So there are advantages to it. There really are for an employer. And I think it's the flexibility that you've got to look at. You've got to be aware that there's going to be days when they're going to need some support. And I think that everybody in the office needs to be aware of that. And so you need to have a bit of give and take around that.
Mental support.
Yeah, definitely. And as the manager, I think you've always got to have an open door policy, and that's what I always had, so that it didn't matter what I was doing, unless I was with other families, other clients, that's different. But if I was just sitting at my desk, didn't matter what I was doing, anybody could walk through that door and sit down and talk to me. And I think that's what carers needed. They need to be able to feel that they could do that. And that was all of my staff, not just people that were carers. All staff need that. They need to think, actually, something's bothering me. I want to come in and I want to just talk to you about it now. And I think that's going on to a completely different topic, but that's what really worries me about isolation and home working now. You need that contact with people, you do. So, and I think I would say that even if you get offered a job where you can work from home the majority of the time, I think as an employee, you should make the effort to go in, to build those relationships with the other people in the office. It's not the same on Zoom, doesn't matter what people say.
No, not at all.
No.
Not at all. Okay, what can you, there are other things you employed at that time, job sharing. So can you talk about some of those kind of work arrangements?
Yes, well, we did have people that started off working full time, and then it became through various caring issues, it became too much for them. So we were happy to say, okay, we'll advertise. We had to get our funders to agree to it, but if they did, then we were able to advertise to get another part-time employee, so that they could do 2.5 days each, or 2 days and 3 days, whatever suited. That came at a cost to the organisation, of course, because you had to do twice as many.
Yes, management.
Yeah. So, it did come as a cost to the organisation, but I think it was well worth it, because actually I didn't want to lose the expertise that person had built up. I didn't want to have somebody fresh in and have to train him again. So it was still to my advantage to do that, even though I might have to do hundreds of supervisions because and the costs involved in payroll, etc. as well. But it was still worth it to keep somebody with that knowledge that they'd got. So yeah, and also, as I say, the adjustable hours, even when people were coming into the office, if somebody was struggling to get care first thing in the morning, but they didn't mind coming in at 10 or 10:30 and working till 5:30 or 6 o'clock, I was always there. So that was fine. That was fine. We could sort of work that out as well. So I just think it was a whole, it's all around flexibility really. But I think the carer has to be equally as flexible, as I say. So if you ask them to do something at the weekend and you've been very good about letting them work flexibly through the week, then, you know, I would be looking for them to support the business by saying, yes, I can do that. And generally getting care, if you've got a good family and friends around you, getting care at the weekends is probably easier than it is trying to get it for during the working day. And hopefully at not too much cost to the person. So yeah, flexibility without a doubt.
Thank you so much. What would you say to an employer who is looking at the bottom line, who is saying, I mean, well, I mean, I have invested, let's say, you know, a business owner, I've invested so much, or this particular project is time bound and we need to get the funding, we need to do I don't have time for that. How do you think someone who is coming, someone like me, for example, coming with a complex, you know, child, I mean, a child with many complex needs, and who will need to go off and on and all at different times, how will that impact on the bottom line? You know, where would you say model?
To be honest, if there was a project that I thought was really having to be completed in a very strict timeline and there was no flexibility in it whatsoever, then I would probably be saying, I'm not sure that this is the role for you, because I wouldn't want to put anybody under that much pressure. And you've got to be honest sometimes. Sometimes you've just got to look at it. And when you're looking for a job, you need to look at those things. But generally, there's a way around it. Generally, you can look at, as I say, just working the hours at different times. The only trouble when you might find it's a problem is if you're doing some sort of a research project and you've got to be there when offices are open. If you're working with other stakeholders, they're usually the ones that give you the most problems, then that's not so easy. But there will come a time, you know, to be perfectly honest, as an employer, we'd have to think, actually, no, this isn't suitable. I'm looking for somebody that hasn't really got any commitments at all to do this. And
that's fair as well.
You've just got to be honest about it. So
I think what we would just be hoping for, you know, for employers is to just give that opportunity, you know, where it can be, yeah.
And I think with the sort of third sector that we were in, and particularly in Bromley Mencat, there were so many different projects going on that there was usually roles available.
Yes.
For carers and for flexibility, not so much in other roles. Although having said that, I did look after my mum for 10 years and still did a full-time job. But and you know, there were times when I could take an extended lunch hour, pop out for 2 hours, because if you're willing to give the hours on the days when you can,
yes,
but nobody minds giving you flexibility on the days when you can't. So yes, there is a way around it. But you need to, I think it's always about the person that's coming for the job. They need to look at it and think, actually, am I prepared for that kind of pressure? Because you will feel the pressure. As nice as you can be as an employer, you've got to hit that deadline. You've got to meet that. And if you haven't got somebody that can do it for you, then you're going to have to step in and do it. So you need to look at it. And I would say, don't put yourself under too much pressure straight away. Go back part-time. Unless you've got a fantastic support system, then go back full-time by all means, but know what's right for you.
Yeah, know what's right for you. That's very, very key in all these things. So thank you so much, Gill. I think there was this, as we round up, there was a particular conversation I was having with you at some point, and I want you to just talk about that. Now, this extended more. I mean, at that time we were talking generally about women and the treasure, you know, that we have, that we were comparing that to what was like women liberation and things like that. And you were saying, I still have it at the back of my head, that we as women, if we harness the energy and the positivity and the strength that we have, it would, even though feminine, it would still make a lot of impact. I don't know if you can just talk a little bit about that on the general notes, as as a woman now, to round up.
It's difficult because I am quite old now. So I've lived through lots of different kind of eras as a woman. I mean, I could tell you that when I first started work, I wasn't allowed to wear trousers in the office.
Oh, whoa.
Had to wear skirts or dresses. That was the rule. Everybody had to be called formally, so had to be Miss Don or Mrs. Eldridge, as it was. It was all very formal, and it was all very, everybody knew their place. But I think over 50 years of working, I saw a huge change, and that was about young women sort of empowering themselves, believing that they were as good as anybody else. And I think it was other women taking a chance on that too. They were agreeing with them. Yes, we can do this. And older women in the workplace were then, I think, open to their views. We could have all sort of sat back and said, actually, do you know what? No, this is what it was. When we were young, you've all got to do it exactly the same. No, don't come in those trousers. Don't tell me you're having a baby and expect me to give you a job back in 3 months' time. But actually, we learn by the experience of our own lives that things could be so much better for women. And so I do think women are powerful when they get together. And because of their flexibility, because of their ability to multitask, which I think is so important, they can actually achieve a lot more. They don't see a start and end to their working day. They don't say I start at 9 and I finish at 5 or whatever the hours are. They see all the other roles that they run and that they develop as enhancing their working life, and their working life enhances their home life. A better all-rounded person. So yeah, I think women are brilliant, and that they should stick together, get men into
Thank you so much. What would be your last parting words to parents, carers? Just encourage them, give them that, that encouragement and motivation that you always give us.
You know what? It's within everybody to be a hero. So go out there and do it. Go out there and do it. Know your own time and go and do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. That's so powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Gill. I'm grateful. You see, I mean, there's so many. I was just writing and scribbling here, and I know that a lot of people will find this very, very useful. It's the beginning of the year, not minding that we're already in March, and I know that talking with parents, they would like to do, some things outside of, and that's what I say, that, there is that you can live a full life. Even as a parent carer. Timing is important, and I can see that from all the things you said. And I guess we'll all get there at different stages and phases as we go on with providing care for our children. But I just think that it is necessary to also find a space for yourself, because at the end of the day, it makes you a better carer, is what I think.
It does. It makes you a better person, gives you a better life. And that's what it's all about, really, isn't it?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. I won't keep you any longer. I know you have a lot of other things to attend to. God bless you. Thank you. I know. Thank you so much. Yes. All right then. Bye, Gill. God bless. Thanks.
You are exalted. You are exalted. You are exalted.